So I wanted to continue this morning. So how many people were either here on... so for those of you who just kind of wandered in today, we've been having what we call a three-day Mahasangha gathering that began Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Been lots of activities and fun stuff and music. We don't usually have a piano here. We've been fortunate. Many different kinds of activities and eating together, a lot of fellowship. But the probably only serious thing was Fred gave a talk on Friday morning. So how many people were there? And how many people were who weren't there who were able to listen to it online? And how many people have no idea what it was about? All right. All right. So let me since pretty much most people were there, I'll just quickly summarize. Basically, what did I talk about? So this was like the first talk, for this Mahasangha gathering of our community. And I really wanted to go back to the roots, and the roots for me is Thich Nhat Hanh, and my encounter with him, and working with him on bringing into being this book that became known as Interbeing. This is the first edition, 1987, which contains the commentaries of his on what then was called the Tiepian order. Now it's called the Order of Interbeing, which was this order founded by him. And on Friday, I commented on looking at the charter at the four principles. Anybody remember what they were? Number one. These are like the four principles of the order. And so let me just say, in Thay's earlier days, he was a creative force within Buddhism. His country was, in civil war. The whole thing was divided. There was great violence. People were killing each other because of ideologies. Anyhow, there was just an incredible amount of suffering going on, and a lot of. As we all know, it's oftentimes in times of great suffering or difficulty that we often kind of relook at our life. And so he really kind of took a relook at Vietnamese Buddhism and really felt there had to be a reorientation because the historical social situation that was unfolding in Vietnam and then the world needed a different response. It didn't need a different Buddhism, but it needed a Buddhism that perhaps emphasized things that were less emphasized in the past and more emphasized things that weren't so emphasized in the past. So his four major points for people who were followers of the order were non-attachment to views, direct practice realization, and the concepts of appropriateness and skillful means. And if you're interested what those mean, you can listen to the talk, which I believe is posted or will be posted. It'll be made public this afternoon. Again, probably the one thing, just this little note that I didn't talk about to members on Friday was in the charter, besides setting forth the general principles and ethics and the 14 trainings and just the general principles like these four, and the kind of a non-denominational spirit and all the other things that you'll hear in the talk. Thay's model for Sangha was that OI ordained members, he called, would be the kernel or the core community. And then around that core kernel would be the members of that Sangha. So that would be sort of a distinction, right? And interesting enough, as opposed to traditional Buddhism, where monks and nuns and laymen were not equal, in Thai's order of Interbeing was open to monks and nuns, lay people, men and women, and everyone was equal, right? So, which means he empowered everybody who was an order member to build a community, and actually encouraged that was really the purpose of the order of Interbeing, was to create communities where people could learn another way to live, another way to be. And as I said on Friday, he called them communities of resistance, meaning they were resisting the toxic culture of modern times. And he felt that people can only learn this new way if they're in an environment where that can really be nurtured and supported. People cannot do it on their own. Anyhow, you can listen to my talk. I'm not saying so, not because it's so great, but just because I talk about these matters. So, this book is called Interbeing, Commentaries on the Tiep Hien Precepts. Tiep Hien is a Vietnamese word that when Thai first started transmitting in the early 80s to a few people, he had transmitted the trainings, ordination to 6 people in the 60s in Vietnam, and then everything fell apart. He went into exile, and he didn't do it until the early 80s did he begin to offer ordination in the order. It was called the Tiep Hien order. So he used the Vietnamese. But at a certain point, and I guess it's because this is 87, at a certain point he thought, no, we need an English name for this. And also a French name, So he came up with the term interbeing. This is his unique word, interbeing. And I remember he was quite proud of himself for coming up with that word that really wasn't in English, right? Interbeing. We have interconnection, interdependence, but we don't have interbeing. So what I want to talk about today is the word that we translate as interbeing, but is Tiep Hien. These 2 words. And I'm going to really base this on his commentary, because it's so beautiful. So he says, the words Tiep and Hien have several meanings. And we need to understand them if we're to understand the spirit. And when I say the spirit of the Tiep Hien order, or the order of Interbeing, what I really believe is his spirit. The order was his. It was a reflection of his understanding, his aspiration, his hope for the world, and his hope for a transformative kind of Buddhism developing. So he says there are 4 things to understand about the words Tiep Hien. And they are to be in touch with, to continue, to realize, and to make it here and now. So this is the meaning of Tiep Hien, of interbeing. So let's go one by one. What are we to be in touch with? What?
Source, everything.
Our true self.
Well, let's work slowly. To be in touch with, he says, reality. Right? If anybody knows about mental health, somebody who is psychotic is what? Not in touch with reality. Right? Kind of simple. They're in their own reality. Does that sound familiar? Anybody here understand that perhaps they have a little touch of psychosis? Right? We all do. Because a psychotic person lives in the reality that is solely created by their mind, right? It's not based on any kind of consensual reality, but it's a reality that is totally real to them. I don't know if you've ever been around people who are having a psychotic episode. Yeah, it's totally real to them. And yet their reality is all mind created, right? So the first thing we have to be in touch with is reality. The reality of he says the reality of the mind and the reality of the world. And so let me just read. I could say, but let me just read him. To be in touch with mind means not only to be aware of the processes of our inner life, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, etc., but also to rediscover our true mind, which is the source of all understanding and compassion. Being in touch with our true mind is like digging deep into the soil until we reach a hidden source and the well filled with water. Upon rediscovering our true mind, we are filled with understanding and compassion, which only nourishes us but those around us. So the first thing we do, we need to be in touch with reality. And now he's talking about the reality of our mind. Right? So we know, what do we practice here? Foundations of mindfulness. Awareness of what? Body sensations. Right? Thoughts, perceptions. Right? Yeah. So the first step is to become aware of our mind and the processes of our mind. Why do we have to become aware of them and be able to label them correctly? Why do we want to help somebody who is psychotic know that they're hallucinating or their thoughts are delusional? Why do we want to help them see that? What? What? Relieve their pain, yeah, because it's causing them suffering, because they believe these things are real, right? Does anybody here believe their thoughts are real? Yeah. Does anybody believe as they go through their day and they're endlessly projecting thoughts about themselves, the world, how they are, what's going on? Does anybody believe those thoughts are real? And invest a lot of energy into them? And talk a lot about them? With other people who believe their thoughts are real? Right? And so we create this mass delusion that we think is real. Now, if you've ever worked with somebody who's significantly psychiatrically impaired, like psychotic or delusional, there's one thing you'll notice about most of them. They're not happy. They're not happy. They suffer. Yeah. And so the reason, if you're a mental health person, you want to help bring people out of their delusions and their psychoses is so their suffering can end. So that's kind of extreme. But we suffer because of our thoughts, our beliefs, our narratives, the memories we hold on to, and right? Projections and our worries and our fears. Our worries, our fears, our angers, where do they all occur? Anybody have an idea? Where do they all occur? In the mind. The same exact place that psychotic people's delusions occur. Same place. You know, it used to be the joke in psychiatric facilities, you know, how can you tell the patients from the staff? Well, you know, who's got the keys? That was the only way to tell. So we want to be in touch with reality. But, you know, it's all reality of the mind, but it also means to be in touch like we did this morning. You know, what's reality? Right? We see. I mean, in a relative way, this is our reality, isn't it? I mean, this is our reality now, isn't it, for everybody? Right? I see you, you see me, you hear, I hear, smell, taste, touch, feel. This is also reality. And one of the reasons that Thich Nhat Hanh spent so much of his teaching career endlessly repeating the same thing over and over again was what? To help people come into reality. You know, like when you're drinking a cup of tea, know you're drinking a cup of tea. Be present to it. This is your reality. Right? When you're walking, be present to the reality of walking. Because that's really what's going on in life. When you're talking to somebody, be present to them. If you're thinking about them, interpreting, preparing what you're going to say next, are you in reality? No, you're just in your thoughts. So, learning to live in reality is the foundation of sanity. Right? So if you're dealing with somebody who's psychotic or delusion, you want to bring them back into reality. Right? Now again, the mental health community has a different sense of what reality than the Buddhist world. So, but we want to live in reality. Right? And that is being present to what's going on right now and to know the difference. Anybody ever kind of, you know, all of a sudden realize, wow, I've been lost in my thoughts for the last 20 minutes. Anybody ever have that experience? 2 hours, 20 years, you know? Yeah, you know, I mean, and all of a sudden kind of like we wake ourselves up. We go, wow, you know, where am I? Oh, I'm sitting here, you know, drinking a cup of tea. But I haven't been in reality, have I? I've been lost in my thoughts. Past, future, present, work, you know, it's like, so, you know, the reason Thich Nhat Hanh, you know, endlessly, I'll tell you a little anecdote, I don't share it too often. The last time I saw Thai when he still spoke, I did have the opportunity to see him several times after his stroke, but he couldn't speak. We saw him in Vietnam, and I had an interview with him. And this was, I think, the fifth or sixth day of, there was a retreat in Hanoi it was in English-speaking people. There were people there from all over the world, but it was in English in Hanoi. And, you know, he was there on a larger trip. And we were talking, you know, and all of a sudden he said, and this was like the fifth or sixth day of this retreat, and he said, Fred, I can't remember his exact words, I should have recorded, but he said, Fred, do you wonder why I'm still giving the same exact teaching I gave 10, 20, I can't remember, 30 years ago? And of course, I said, no, I don't know Thai. And he said, Fred, they just don't get it. So I have to say it over and over and over again. You know, how wonderful. If anybody ever have an opportunity to attend a retreat with Thai? Yeah. over and over and over. I mean, he was so creative. One of the things I was always amazed by him, I could hear him give the same teachings I've heard him give 1,000 times. It was always new. It was always fresh. I mean, it never, yeah. But he gave it over and over again because we don't get it. Right? So we want to get it. This profound transmission that he's giving us. So, the first thing we got to do is be in touch with the smoke screen. The smoke screen is what? Thoughts, feelings, perceptions, all this stuff that's endlessly going through our mind. I mean, it's not like they can't be utilized and they don't have meaning, but we're just lost in them, right? Lost in the smoke screen. So once we can get through the smoke screen, what he's really talking about is we want to get in touch with our true mind, which is the source of understanding and compassion. This is what the practice is about. Right? This is the foundation of Buddhism, Zen, all the great meditative traditions. Going back to the Buddha's enlightenment, which was what? His great discovery that within the mind is the treasure we seek. It's right here. Right? But it's what? It's covered over, so we don't see it. What's it covered over by? By all our mistaken thoughts and delusions and obsessions and our endless desires, and you know what I'm talking about? All that stuff, right? So it's like we're always looking in the wrong direction, and we don't see what's right here. So he says to be in touch with is not just the consensual reality of what we see, smell, taste, and touch, and feel and think, but the most importantly, to get in touch with the deeper mind. See, it's called, anybody ever hear the mind of love? Anybody ever have a feeling of love? Kindness, compassion, caring. Where does that come from? I mean, where does that come from? Where do you think it comes from? You think it's because you read it in a book? No. That's our natural capacity of this mind. Right? It just naturally expresses if we let it. But we don't let it, do we? We'll talk more about that. But it's important that we understand that he's saying to be in touch means to be in touch with your true mind. The source. In Dzogchen we give a meditative, where do your thoughts come from? Right? And people will say, well, I know where my thoughts, what a stupid question. My thoughts come from my mind, right? Right? Well, look into your mind and watch, where do they come from? Very interesting to see where thoughts come from. To be in touch with the reality of the world means to be in touch with everything that surrounds us, which includes the animal, vegetable, mineral worlds. Then he says, in order to really be in touch, we must strive to get out of our shell, the conceited shell of I am. So if we wonder, why don't I experience, if I have this true mind, and it's right here within me, and it's a source of all good, all love, all compassion, every good quality, well, why don't I experience it, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Or why do I experience, like so briefly? Just kind of every now and then it pops out. Feels great, but then it, right? Why don't I experience it all the time? And the answer, that he's giving, which is the basis also of Buddhist psychology, it's because we are obsessed with our identification with myself. And he or she is a full-time job. Have you noticed? A full-time job, endlessly, from morning till night. It's got demands, it's got wants, it's got needs, it's got worries, it's got hurts, it's got, right? Dramas, endless drama. I mean, it's so busy keeping us occupied. Who has time to look deeply into the nature of things? So he says, in order to be really in touch, we must strive to get out of our shell the conceited I am. I exist, separate from everything else. We must try to see both the wonderful things in life, snowflakes, moonlight, bird songs, flower blossoms, and the dreadful things like hunger, disease, torture, oppression, and other forms of suffering. We're in touch with everything. We don't, parcel it out. I want to be in touch with that. I don't want to be in touch with that. Right? We want to see things as they really are. And how are things really? Everything. Everything that arises in this world, in our mind, has their own reality. And we want to be totally open to everything. That's our path. Right. Now, for most people, we go, oh, no, right? No. I don't want to be in touch with suffering, or not too much suffering. Because why? Why don't we want to be in touch with suffering? What? It's no fun? Amen. No fun. That's for people who want to have fun. Suffering is no fun. I appreciate, Jill, that you got right to the heart of things. Yeah. Why else don't we want to be in touch with suffering? It's painful. What? It makes us feel bad. Lack of control. We're afraid if we get in touch with suffering, our own suffering, anybody else's, it's going to be too much. Yeah, it's going to consume me. I'm going to break. I mean, it's a downer. Right? Well, you're way ahead of me. And please be aware, from suffering, people are called to all kinds of actions. Not just the action that you want people called to. That's the problem. People are called to all kinds of actions. Right? So that's a good answer. But we have to be careful. Yeah. Because what? Because,
not my problem. I hear quite wrong.
yeah, not my problem. Yeah, lots of ways, not my problem. But so don't forget, Thich Nhat Hanh is founding an order. And what we call bodhisattvas, people who want to renew Buddhism and practice Buddhism in the world and to be of help. So now he gives us the key, right? How do I not close off to suffering? How do I not ignore suffering? But how do I enter the world of suffering? And a lot of people have trouble entering their own suffering, or the suffering of people around them, much less the suffering of the world, the planet, and all that. He says, with understanding and compassion, we enter into life with a firm desire to alleviate the suffering around us. Let me just read that again. It's so simple, and many of you know it. With understanding and compassion, we can enter into life with a firm desire to alleviate the suffering around us. Okay. So this is what? This is the armor, right? This is the armor of the Bodhisattva. right? You don't go into battle without some armor on, right? You don't go into battle without some tools, or you might get chewed up, right? So what is our armor? What are our tools? Understanding and compassion. This is so important. This is where we get lost, you see. Because if we don't have understanding, a deep understanding, compassion of ourselves and what's going on in the world, it's very easy for us to get lost in our own personal fears, our own personal angers, our own personal self-righteousness, our own personal antipathies, our own personal hatreds, our own personal judgments. You know, we can so easily get lost, or we get overwhelmed and we burn out and right? It's understanding and compassion. These are the tools. This is the armor of a bodhisattva, right? What is it we understand? We understand the nature of our minds. We understand the basic wholeness and goodness of all beings. We understand that everything arises according to causes and conditions. Everything that is happening anywhere within me and the world is only happening because of causes and conditions. Right? If you understand that, you don't get angry, you don't get fearful, you don't despair. You understand it's just happening because of causes and conditions. It just is what's happening. Right? You have understanding and you have compassion. Compassion means it's all suffering. Right? Right? You read the news, you read let's say what's going on in Washington. And you could be interpreting it in a million different ways and have all kinds of reactions, and positive, negative, anger, love, You know how I look at it? Just suffering. Just suffering people creating more suffering for each other. Lost in their sufferings. Right? Right? If you listen to our political discourse, do you ever hear the word love? Anybody hear them talking about love lately? Compassion, understanding. It's like a... Yeah, that's what's going on out here. Just delusion, run rampant. People living in what? Yeah, living in the world of ego. God, angry, resentful, revengeful, settling scores, competing with each other, trying to get the better of each other. Jealous, greed. It's like, yeah. Oh, that's what's going on. Well, of course. Everywhere. So with understanding, and I could go on and on, compassion, we can enter the world. We can enter life, wherever you show up, with a firm desire to alleviate the suffering of others. That's your only goal. Not to win, not to get it right, not to have my side victorious, right? Because if your side is victorious this year, guess what? Exactly. Yeah. We want to alleviate the suffering. That's a very different reason to enter the world. And if we want to end the suffering of the world, the same way let's say we want to end our own personal suffering, as the Buddha taught in the Four Noble Truths. First step is acknowledge the suffering. Second step is cause. If you don't clearly understand the cause of suffering, your attempts to alleviate it will not work. Because you never got at the cause. We're always trying to remediate the symptoms, right? So we're suffering. Let's just take individuals. Forget about the world. So we're individuals. Anybody here ever suffer? Right? And so we have all kinds of strategies. Because, as Jill wisely said, suffering's no fun. Right? Yeah. So we have endless strategies not to suffer. What do we do? Run away. Great one. What else do we? Oh, we do so many things. What else do we do? We distract ourselves. What else do we do? Get angry. Blame them. Blame the other one. Yeah, we get angry. What else do we do? Come on. What? Find a nice addiction. And we are in a wonderful society where we don't have to go far, do we? No. we, you know. Yeah, you can probably get it online. What else? What else do we do? What? We endlessly asking people for advice. What do I do about this? What do I do about that? Yeah.
We meddle in other people.
We endlessly meddle to end because we think, but what are we meddling in? We're meddling in symptoms. We're meddling in symptoms. Right? You know, next time you're talking to your friends, like, well, what's the cause of your suffering? I mean, that's a fascinating question. I mean, like, what's at the bottom of all this? Right. When you get to the bottom of all this, and when you see the cause of suffering, then you can accurately be of help. Because you'll know, yeah, if you really want to end your suffering, this is what's going to have to change, or this is what you're going to have to give up. Right? You know, it's like a chronic smoker going to a pulmonologist complaining about chest pains. And you know what? They do that. Right? You know. Give up smoking. Maybe I'll cut down. Maybe I'll switch to a milder brand. Right? You see, I mean, we're endlessly negotiating rather than looking at the cause. You know, like, you know, earlier we meditated, right? You know, so simple, right? Just be at ease, settle down, come into your body, come into your breath, let go of the stories. And, right? Isn't it a piece of cake? Right? Everybody found it a total piece of cake? What? Yeah, why not? Thoughts. What kind of thoughts? All kinds of thoughts. But the key ingredient is thoughts where we are attached to. We just don't let them flow through like a bird flying through the sky, do we? No, we like to what? We like to latch on. We like to chew on them. Right? And chew on them. And chew on them. And then chew on them some more. And once we're done chewing on one, we'll come back to our body breath for a couple of seconds, and then we'll find another one to chew on. Right? But, you know, and this endless chewing prevents us from really seeing what's going on. So let me, there's more here. But then the next term, so the first one was to be in touch with, give you a little sense of what it would be in touch with. Next is, he says, continue. T-I-E-P means to tie the ends of two strings together in order to make a longer line. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, to continue connotes extending and perpetuating the career of enlightenment, which was started and nourished by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that preceded us. It is helpful to remember the word Buddha denotes he or she or he who is awake or enlightened. So, what does that mean for us? To continue. We want to continue what has been handed down to us from our predecessors, right? We want to continue it. Because we think it's what? Yeah, valuable, good stuff, good medicine. You know, we have a tradition of 2,600 years where all kinds of men and women, all different kinds of classes and races have just been experimenting with the human mind and human behavior and human speech all around how to create happy, healthy, awake human beings and how to end their suffering and their pettiness. I mean, right? This is what's being bequeathed to us. But, you know, here we are sitting in Tampa, Florida, on Nebraska Avenue, right? You know, what are we doing here? Well, we're looking at, we're reflecting on, we're practicing something that has been given to us, right? Given to us by who? By those who came before us. Is that clear? I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for my teachers who taught me the Dharma. Right? Right? Now, where did they learn the Dharma? From their teachers. And where did their teachers learn the Dharma? See? There's a continuation that goes back thousands of years. And so what Ty is saying to those who are, you know, embracing the order, either in the kernel community or the supportive community, is that's the second meaning of Tiep. To continue this tradition of awakening, continue this tradition of freedom, continuing this understanding of the possibility of human beings to awaken and be free. You know, that's not talked about, is it? Right? Is that true? Yeah, it's not talked about. You know, if you brought it up in the lunchroom, people look at you like what? Psycho. Oh, that's Fred with his Om stuff or whatever he's up. Right? I mean, you know how people are, right? It would be no one's talking about it. Endlessly, people will talk about all their sufferings, all their difficulties, all their challenges, right? Endlessly. But if you ever say, would you like to end it? Would you like to end your suffering? There is a way, you know. Try it sometime. I mean, you have to be ready. They might say yes, then you're going to have to. So Tai is saying we are a continuation of a tradition, and that we need to see ourselves as the ones who have received. Right? The word is to continue to receive. We've received, and we're going to continue it. Okay? The third, which is very important, to realize, or realization. Okay? So I've received it. You know, I got the book in the mail. You know, I received it, right? Isn't that enough? And I'll just pass it on to somebody. You know how we, recommend books to people? Gee, just really read a great book. Really give you a lot of insight. Here, we pass on the book, right? And we think, oh, being helpful. The third concept is to realize, or realization. Hien means not to dwell and be caught in the world of doctrines and ideas, but to transform insights into real life. Understanding and compassion must not become ideas about understanding and compassion. They must be real existing entities within life itself, which can be seen, touched, and experimented with. Okay? So this is, and this, if you remember the four principles, the third one was practice realization. So when I think of the world realization, I think of it's got to be real, right? We understand, like, yeah, it's got to be real. This is real. I got to get real. We talk about it. You got to get real, buddy. Got to get real. So we want it to be real. We don't just want to talk the talk. We want to walk the walk, right? So, so we have to practice, reflect and practice so it becomes real. So I'm not just somebody who does loving kindness practices, which is good. I'm not just somebody who does compassion practices, which are good. I'm not just somebody who studies the doctrines of impermanence and karma and cause and effect and dukkha, which is good. But I'm somebody who has realized the truth of these. They're real. How do you know they're real? Because it's lived. That's what he's saying. It's lived. Right. So we have to study, we have to take our study and our practice in a way that it becomes real. Is that easy? No. To make it real. To really be a loving human being. Not somebody who's capable of love, but who shows up as a loving human being. When? Always. Tall order. Right? Patient human being. Always. Tall order. Kind human being. Caring human being. Understanding human being. Selfless human being. Try that one on. Yeah. Really care more about the well-being of others than myself. Which doesn't mean you don't care about yourself or those people who want to go there. No, it doesn't mean that. This is a very healthy human being. They're not selfless because they want other people to like them or love them, or they want to use their selflessness to manipulate them, or they want people to think they're great and, look how selfless I am, It's none of that. Right? It's natural. It's become real. The teachings of non-self are real. They've been realized so they can be lived. Is that easy? No. Right? It takes what? Practice. Which means what for most of us? Endless course correction. Is that clear? That's what it's, practice is course correction. All right. You get up in the morning, you set your intention. 5 minutes later, you blow it, right? Today is going to be different. I'm going to be kind to this person. I'm not going to let him bother me. I'm just going to be understanding, right? Blows up in your face. All you do at that point is what? Course correction. That's all. Yeah. That's practice. We practice because we don't get it. A lot of people get frustrated with themselves. Well, I just set my intention to be da-da-da-da, and yeah. Course correction, that's all. No commentary, no commentary is needed. Just correct the course when you're, when you're on the wrong road, just get back on the right road. Just an acknowledgement. Very simple. Of course, to realize that does not only mean to act. First of all, realization connotes transforming oneself. Very hard for us, because we live in a world of what? Of action, right? Everybody's an activist, right? They're left-wing activists, they're right-wing activists, they're this activist, they're that activist, they're pro-abortion activists, they're anti-abortion activists. I mean, the world is filled with what? Activists. I'm not saying anything negative about that, but I mean, that's our world. Active, get active, do something. Thich Nhat Hanh was the first person who ever said, don't just do something, stand there. We grew up with, don't just stand there, do something. He was the first guy who ever said to me, right? Yeah, don't do something, stand there. Right? It turns things around on its head, doesn't it? Because we want to what? We want to do something, right? And again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing something, but he says, first of all, realization means we have to transform ourselves, and that's his, as if you're familiar with his teachings, he says, yeah, you want a peaceful world, become a peaceful person. What? Peaceful person means I live in harmony with everyone. I'm a peaceful person. My heart is at peace. Peaceful person. Right? You want a loving world? Become a loving person. Which means it doesn't mean you love 5 people, or 10 people, or 20 people. Become a loving person loves who? Everyone. Now let me just, for those you're going to go in, doesn't mean you have to like everybody. I'll give you a secret. You don't have to like everybody. Okay? But you have to love everybody. Why do you love everybody? Because they suffer. Right? And every human being is worthy of kindness. Right? I mean, would we like it if people were kind to us? Across the board. Wouldn't that be nice? Right? I mean, if people didn't come to us first and say, well, who'd you vote for in the last election? What do you know what I'm saying? What's your background? What's your this? That's, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to really love you or not. Extend my compassion to you. No, he's saying, first of all, realization connotes transforming oneself. This transformation creates a harmony between oneself and nature, between one's own joy and the joy of others. Once a person gets in touch with the source of understanding and compassion within themselves, this transformation is accomplished. When this transformation is present, all one's actions will carry the same nature and effect, protecting and building life with understanding and compassion. Quite something. I mean, what a tall order. What a mind. Right? We talk about Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This is the mind of a Buddha. I mean, this is the awakened mind speaking. Can you feel it? It's like, wow. It's like, when I met these men and women, it was like these people coming from another place, right? Coming from another place. And yet they say that place that they're coming from is within all of us. I mean, that's the good news. It's not like Thich Nhat Hanh, is special. He's special that his practice was so sincere and his integrity was so complete that he was able to manifest this way. Is that clear? But his message was, we can all do this. So we have to get in touch with the source of understanding, which is in ourselves. People often say, well, my heart is closed. Is that a common, See, even saying that, we're acknowledging what? That we have a heart. And it's actually, its nature is to be open. We had to close it. I've closed my heart to that person. I've closed my heart to people. I've closed my heart to these and to those. And we're in a world where we find more and more excuses to close our hearts to other people. Right? And as Thich Nhat Hanh warned us, he said we're closing our hearts to people because of their views. Right? I mean, this is something pretty incredible. Because we close our hearts to people because of their views. We become hard-hearted. If one wishes to share joy and happiness with others, one should have joy and happiness within oneself. If one wishes to transmit serenity, first one should realize it oneself. With a sane and peaceful mind, one's actions could only create, without a sane and peaceful mind, one's actions could only create more trouble and destruction in the world. Isn't that fascinating? In the course of human history, have there been many individuals and people and movements with good intentions? What? Yeah. And yet what? We need to stop and go, and yet what? Why is the world still doing what it's doing? You see, it's like, that's a deep question. Not we should just, answer. It's like, we need to look deeply. Why is that? I mean, the Buddha appeared when? 2,600 years ago. Jesus, what? 2,000 years ago. I mean, Muhammad, Moses, all of them. Right? What's going on here? It's just because of what Ty's saying. Jesus' teachings have not been realized by his followers. They haven't become real for them. The Buddhist teachings, all the teachings, Islam, all of them, they haven't become real, that they're actually lived, put in action. And there'll endlessly be reasons why not to do it, right? Society will always invent ways, rationalizations, why not to do it. The last expression for us to examine is to make it here and now. Within the spirit of TFPM, only the present is real and everlasting. The peace we desire is not in some distant future, but something to be realized in the present. To practice Buddhism does not mean to endure hard things now for the sake of peace and liberation in the future, to be born in paradise or a Buddha land. The purpose of practice is to have peace for ourselves and others right now while we're breathing. And, and then a very key part of Buddhism, cause and effect are one. Right? There's not cause, effect. Cause and effect are one. Because the cause will become the effect. There's no separation. Which is why, if you want a peaceful world, you have to be a peaceful person. You have to make causes for peace. right? In our culture, we make war for peace, right? Which again, there's always a reason why that seems right at the time, but if we step back and look at human history, we go, well, this is bizarre. Human beings have been going to war to make peace, to bring peace for thousands of years. So we should be living in the land of peace, shouldn't we? If cause and effect are one. Or not, but the Buddha said no. Violence will only end with nonviolence. Right? Cause and effect are one. Hate cannot create love. Right? It can't. Only love can create love. Only peace can create peace. Cause and effect are one. Right? So that's why Tai says, you want a peaceful world, become a peaceful person. You want a loving world, become a loving person. You want a patient world, become a patient person. You want a tolerant world, become a tolerant person. Right? Yeah. Based on the insight that means our ends, all forms of practice should be entered into mindfully and peacefully. While practicing sitting meditation, walking meditation, cleaning, working, serving, whatever one's doing, one should always feel peace within oneself or herself. The aim of sitting meditation is to be peaceful during sitting meditation. Working to help hungry or sick people means to be peaceful during that work. One doesn't practice for future rewards. The secret of Buddhism is to be awake here and now. Right? Yeah, so that's interesting. So, so that's sort of Thai's explanation of this word interbeing. And there are, again, other words that he could have chosen, but, we live in a society that is traditionally, what? Individualistic, right? I mean, that's the way we're raised, aren't we? Our culture is about me, advancing me, getting ahead, right? Right? The one with the most cookies, the one who has got the most toys. What was that expression? What? The one with the most toys wins. And who do you think wants to have the most toys? Me. Right? It's not like, oh, the society that everybody has toys wins. No, it's right. When I want to win. We want to win, don't we? Yeah. So, we have a culture and a society that is so individualistic, so based on me, right? My needs, my wants, that it's hard for us to kind of formulate. It almost seems, I don't know, what does it seem? To kind of go, well, if I want to be happy, and I look, if I come out of my egoistic shell, most of us live in an egoistic shell where it's, my needs, my wants, my happiness, my this, my that. But if I come out of that and I look around, what do I notice? See, when we come out of our egoistic shell and our self-absorption, we can't help but notice what?
Everybody else is that way too.
Well, we notice, well, look, like I'm noticing. Look, there are 80, 90 people in this room, right? I'm not the only one here. Let me see, I want to be happy. I don't want to suffer. Anybody here want to be happy and not suffer? Or are you into your suffering? Right? All right, let's just take a vote. This is like grade school. Anybody want to be happy and not suffer anymore? So we all want the same thing. I mean, isn't that fascinating? And we could go to any country in the world, it doesn't matter where we would go, any age, rich, poor, this, that, gender, ethnic, doesn't matter what it is. When you say to people, do you want to be happy and not suffer? People would all say, what? Yes. Do you want your children to grow up in peace? Yeah. Do you want your children and your family to have enough food to live? You know what I mean? These are so simple, aren't they? When you approach it at that level. So to enter this, this path that Thich Nhat Hanh is enunciating is that awareness. Yeah. Nobody wants to suffer. Everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants a good life for themselves, their families, their friends. Oh. So, what should I do with my life? Any ideas? What should I do with my life? You see? Yeah. Work wherever I am to be of benefit to people. Right? And it doesn't have to be big. Right? I mean, if you're a big shot with big power and big money, then maybe you could do big things to help humanity. But for most of us, we're small fry, aren't we? So we need to look around our world. We need to look at ourselves. We look at the people we live with, our families, our friends, our colleagues, our neighbors, our communities. Yeah. Everybody wants to be happy. Nobody wants to suffer, just like me. But again, coming back to Ty's message is, but if I haven't demonstrated in my own life that another way is possible, remember, it was a second, it has to be realized. So when we speak to other human beings, so when you say to your friend, and when they're going on and on about their sufferings and their difficulties, when you say to them, well, would you like to stop suffering? See, what if they say yes? Then what are you going to do? Right? You see what I'm saying? Do I really know how to, can I really help them in their suffering? Have I realized it myself? Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, I mean, we can quote the books. It's okay. Or we could say, well, I read Thich Nhat Hanh, and this is what he says. I mean, that's fair. You know what I mean? At least, but wouldn't it be nice if each of us really knew how to do it from our own experience? And again, we're all not going to be Thich Nhat Hanh. One day we all will be, if we set that aspiration. Yeah, but we can contribute to this world. Ty often said, in the Buddhist tradition, there are world cycles. I mean, this is the cosmology of it all, And so like in our world cycle, there is the Buddha Shakyamuni. He came, he appeared, he was our Buddha, he taught the Dharma. But this is just one, of endless world cycles. Worlds, universes always are just coming into being, disappearing. It's endless, all right? But even for our world cycle, supposedly there is another Buddha waiting to appear, Maitreya, the Buddha to be born. So Ty would say, things are dark here, guys. We need more than one Buddha. You have this expression, one Buddha is not enough. And that's why his teaching was, Sangha, community. He'd often say, Sangha is the next Buddha. because one Buddha is not enough. So, yeah, so I think that is sort of the, what Thich Nhat Hanh was up to, right? While he was a world-class teacher, and he wrote over 100 books, and very, very energetic in sharing his wisdom and teachings. And yet, if you look at what he did in his last 30, 40 years, he developed community. That was his message. Right? Build community. Build physical places where people can come together, practice together, nourish each other, learn the practice, learn how to transform, and then be an oasis, because we're all other people. So he was very strong about that. And so in the order of Interbeing, not only are these 14 trainings, which we've talked about, but there is a stress on building community as one's action. Wow. You're still here. As I said, I was fortunate to encounter Thich Nhat Hanh in the 70s and to work with him on his translation and putting this book together. So, it's very deep in my heart. And so I wanted to share it with you today. Yeah, why don't we, there's really nothing to ask, is it? It's all very clear and simple. So why don't we end for now? Thank you, everybody.